Kenneth is my name. My age is 33. After high school, I started working for my current employer, where I have been an idle employee for 15 years at a rural branch. My father died when I was in middle school. Right after middle school, I wanted to start working, but my mother, who was crying, pleaded with me, "Please, at least graduate from high school." I chose to respect my mother's desires and go to high school even though I wanted to lighten her load by working early. I believed that taking out a student loan would postpone my working years by 4 years, and we were unable to pay for education. After high school, I pleaded with my mother to let me to work. In this era, having just a high school diploma might make life tough. My mother stated, acknowledging my sentiments, but she still agreed. I worked part-time at a business owned by my relatives while I was in high school. Although I had other part-time employment, I was graciously hired by my relatives. My folks taught me a variety of professional etiquette after I informed them that I intended to work full-time after high school. Even though they were occasionally severe, I valued their advice since I knew it was a prelude to the real world. I work at a rural branch at the moment. I handle documents and write internal newsletters. It's referred to as an idle position. There is no likelihood of promotion if you are assigned here. Employees from this department are actually the first to be let go amid layoffs. I'm surrounded by problem employees, people who were often late or absent, performed poorly, or caused difficulty in other departments. Personally, I didn't cause any trouble. A specific boss has just noticed me. Amy, a recent college graduate who was a year my junior, started working for the company after me. We shared a department when I was still in the main office. She was 23 and I was 24 at the time. Amy was a popular employee and a really attractive woman. Additionally, there was Kent, a Harvard alumnus 2 years my senior. Amy also has a Harvard degree, thus they are junior and senior. Kent was a senior, and it seems that they had dated once while Amy was a freshman. It was Kent's boast. But according to another Harvard alumnus, Kent's relentless advances were too strong for Amy to ignore, and they had a brief 1-week relationship before Amy ended it. I heard all that was said. Most college graduates didn't give a damn about those of us with only a high school degree. We had the impression that they denigrated us. Knowing this, I avoided interacting with recent college graduates. But when Amy was a new employee, I took on the role of mentor. I was only a year older, but I had worked for 5 more years. It made sense. I'm said to be good at looking after other people. I often think too much about other people's circumstances. I also gave my mother's predicament too much thought following my father's death, and I offered to begin working after middle school. I tend to put other people before myself. This was something Amy seemed to admire about me. At work, she followed me around. I didn't give it much thought because it's normal for rookies to follow their mentors around. However, Kent called me out one day. He said, "Hey, Kenneth, don't get cocky." At first, I didn't understand what he meant, so I asked him honestly, "I don't know what you're talking about." Apparently, my attitude irritated him. His face turned red as he said, "I know you've been following Amy around." Amy? Who was that? I remembered there was one person. Are you talking about Amy? Yes. I heard you're using your position as her mentor to keep her close, like your personal assistant. What? I was dumbfounded. If she was following me around, that made sense. But me following her? How could anyone see it that way? And we only talk about work 99% of the time. The other 1% is just, "I'm hungry," or "What's the weather like tomorrow?" Only talking about work would be awkward. It's a completely professional relationship. We only talk about work, I said. Don't lie. You're abusing your position. I'm going to report you to HR for misconduct. Go ahead. I believe Amy will clear my name during the investigation, I said. I truly believed that. A few days later, there was indeed an inquiry from HR conducted by Henry. Both Amy and I answered normally. This seems strange. Are they questioning all new hires? Amy asked, tilting her head. I had an idea but said, who knows, and tilted my head along with her. After a while, Henry called me directly on the internal line. Kenneth, there's a report that you told Amy not to say anything that would be detrimental to you during the inquiry. What? I was shocked. I never said anything like that to Amy. There must be a mistake, I said. We received a tip, he replied. Who said that? It's not true at all. I can't reveal the source. HR will have someone monitor you. Your boss has also been told to keep an eye on you. Okay, I said and hung up. I hadn't done anything wrong, so I decided to continue as usual. But the thought of being watched made me uneasy. Not just that, knowing my boss would be watching me with suspicion was unsettling. I had worked so hard for the company. It was frustrating, but I couldn't think of a way to prove my innocence. A few days later, Henry called me again. Kenneth, we're removing you from your position as Amy's mentor. Excuse me. I was shocked. It's too sudden. Why? We received information from your boss that you're using your position to manipulate Amy. What? My boss. Was it Curtis, the division manager, or Sage, the section manager? Or perhaps I had one person in mind. Was it Mark? Mark, the supervisor, was drinking buddies with Kent. They were peers, and Mark became a supervisor right after Kent, who was the fastest to get promoted. They were close. Maybe they were colluding behind the scenes. I can't say who, but expect a formal notification from your boss, Henry said. And if this happens again, there will be consequences. Understood, I replied. Amy, beside me, looked puzzled. She couldn't possibly imagine that I was being reprimanded by HR for supposedly abusing my power over her. My mind went blank. Then Sage called out to me, As you probably heard from HR, we're removing you from your position as Amy's mentor. If anything like this happens again, I won't be able to protect you. What? Amy beside me looked surprised. Amy, I'm sorry for not keeping a closer eye on things, Sage continued. What do you mean? Amy asked. Come with me. I'll be your mentor from now on, Sage said. What? Amy exclaimed. Mark grabbed Amy's hand as she stood confused. Seeing this, I realized it was indeed Canton Mark who leaked the false information. I was forbidden from any interaction with Amy and was transferred to another department the next month. Several months passed. After work, Amy called me to meet at the emergency stairs. I didn't go. I continued working late and returned to the locker room around 8:00 p.m. 2 hours after the end of work at 6:00 p.m. I didn't expect Amy to still be there. She was in the cold, her ears, cheeks, and fingers red. She turned around at my voice and said happily, "Knuft." I couldn't help but run to her. I handed her a can of coffee I had bought for myself. Here, hold this. It's warm. Amy smiled, holding the can with both hands. I'm glad you came. She did nothing wrong. Thinking that made my chest hurt. She was forbidden from talking to me without understanding why and had called me out to find out the reason. I decided not to meet her because I didn't want to cause her more trouble or be falsely accused of anything else. I thought if I didn't show up at the agreed time, she would give up and go home. But she waited for me the whole time. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I apologized repeatedly, biting my lip. Why do we have to go through this? We didn't do anything wrong, Amy cried. Amy, if someone sees us, it'll be bad. Let's part ways and go home. Why? Why are we in this situation? I don't know. At that moment, someone shouted, "What are you doing there?" Henry spotted us and raised his voice. I heard voices, so I came to check. What are you doing on the emergency stairs? He looked at me. "Aren't you Kenneth from the blacklist?" I was on the blacklist. It was over. Honestly, I couldn't think straight. Henry's outburst drew the attention of other HR staff working overtime nearby. From there, it was a blur. The story became that I was trying to do something to Amy on the emergency stairs. That incident led to my transfer to a rural branch the following week. Amy was given a few weeks off until I was transferred, so we didn't see each other again. I didn't know her personal contact details, and she didn't know mine. We were separated without being able to do anything. 9 years passed since then. I've been working as an ideal employee at the rural branch ever since. At first, I thought I'd quit such an unfair company, but as a high school graduate, finding a better job was nearly impossible. I couldn't stop sending money to my mother, so I continued working at this company, numbing my feelings. Before I knew it, 9 years had passed. My current rural department is free from a toxic atmosphere, quotas, or long overtime hours. It's very peaceful. It's calm and warm. Everyone works at their own pace and is relaxed. That's the kind of workplace it is. At first, I thought, as rumored, that the employees here were all problem children. I'd assumed they couldn't do their jobs well. But as I worked, I started noticing moments. The people in this department weren't particularly incompetent or had bad behavior. Curious, I suddenly asked around and found out most were transferred here due to false accusations. They were framed by bosses or colleagues, labeled as problematic, and sent to this department. I always excelled at tedious tasks, so creating internal newsletters and organizing documents suited me. I kept working diligently at my own pace. But I was relegated to this static job as a high school graduate, moreover with the false reputation of having a bad character. No woman would be interested in me. So, I've been living in the countryside, working hard without a girlfriend all this time. Before I turned 30, I was anxious about my marriage since many of my old classmates got married. But after turning 30, I started feeling that it was okay to stay single. Marriage shouldn't be forced. One day, the document organization section manager, Tyler, approached me. "Kenneth, how are you today? An elite manager from the main office is coming this Friday. She's a relative of the chairman and apparently a top-notch woman in the company. So, I need you to prepare the materials for her. Can you do that?" "What? By Friday? That's practically just 2 days." It was Tuesday afternoon. After finishing today's work, I'd only have Wednesday and Thursday. Could I manage that? "Yeah, I know, but we just got the notice from the head office. It's a bit of harassment, thinking we're just a static department. But let's create some amazing materials and show them what we can do. Haha. I understand. So, can I work overtime starting today?" "Oh no, that's not possible. We don't have the budget for overtime. That's what payroll told us. They think an idle department like ours doesn't need overtime," Tyler said in his laid-back manner, and then left, saying, "Good luck." I planned to finish my daily tasks within work hours and work on the materials after hours, but overtime was prohibited. What was I supposed to do? At that moment, I heard the conversation. "I'll handle your current tasks, so focus on preparing the materials for Friday. I'll take care of this work. You can count on me." "What? But I feel bad." I hesitated. My seniors, Noah and Jason, smiled and patted me on the back. "Don't worry. You have the important task of creating impressive materials for the inspection. Leave the rest to us." Encouraged by their kindness, I worked frantically on the materials. I used all the limited time and created what I believed to be the best possible materials. On Thursday, before the end of the day, I submitted them to Tyler. Amazing. To produce such materials in such a short time, Tyler said with a voice filled with admiration. Then he smiled at me. "Thank you, Kenneth." No, it was thanks to the support and cooperation of everyone around me. It's all because of them. Don't be so modest. It's the truth. But was this material good enough? I was anxious. Tyler, my colleagues, and my seniors were impressed. But I had been away from the main office for a long time. In the main office, this might be considered low-level work. Everyone in this branch had been far removed from the intense, high-level environment of the main office, so I worried that our standards had dropped significantly. I was very anxious, but I couldn't do any better. If this wasn't good enough, there was nothing more I could do. I braced myself and waited for the next day. However, I had no idea what would happen with this material. Friday arrived. The elite manager from the main office came. Her name was Karen. She was a year younger than me, a college graduate, and it stung a little. She must have been a classmate of Amy. She was very beautiful. Amy had a cute look, but Karen was an elegant, cool beauty. Her intelligence showed in everything she did. I was about to hand over the materials to such a person. Accompanying her was Kent. He was now an assistant manager. When Kent saw me, he gave a triumphant smirk. Are the materials ready? Although Tyler was supposed to be higher in rank, Kent spoke to him condescendingly. Tyler accepted this well. Kenneth, Tyler said to me, looking nervous. I quietly said, yes, and handed the materials to Karen. She slightly smiled and said, thank you. Then she began reviewing the materials on the spot. She read them silently, and after a while, she turned to Tyler with a stern expression. Tyler, who made these materials? Tyler, whose name was called, stiffened visibly. Yes, this was made by Kenneth here. What? You made this? Yes, I did. I nodded. Karen looked puzzled, comparing me with the materials. Karen, my apologies for the inconvenience. Forget about this lowly employee and let's move on, Kent said, giving me a contemptuous look and a sneer. Karen, with a somewhat dazed expression, moved on to the next department. It was a small branch, so as I went about my regular duties, I kept encountering Karen and Kent. Each time, Karen gave me a curious look. Eventually, Karen settled in our department, sitting in a conference room. As I was working quietly, Tyler called me. Kenneth, Karen wants to see you. Called out, I headed to the conference room. There, Karen sat with Kent, sitting one seat apart from her. I'm Kenneth, I said. Please sit, Karen told me, indicating the seat opposite her. Why are you in such a rural place? What is your position? I'm a regular employee. I can't believe it. Karen looked incredulous. I was surprised by her reaction. I've never seen such excellent materials. With all due respect, Karen, there are plenty of people in our company who can produce this level of materials, Kent laughed as he said this. Kent, did you really read these materials? Huh. Oh, of course, Kent's eyes darted nervously. Then you should know, right? The sources cited in these materials, or do you not know? The sources cited in these materials are from a recent scientific journal, right? It's from the UK and newly released. It's very niche, circulated only among specialists. I had always been interested in the field, so I decided to immerse myself in it. You say that easily, but the new research in this field, the important studies that only experts understand, they're filled with technical jargon. This is from a scientific journal. Only someone with a deep understanding could decipher this. Who exactly are you? I was at a loss. Who was I, indeed? As I hesitated, Karen added, and it's not just science. This part here, this is at the level of an international lawyer. You need knowledge of law and the ability to interpret scientific papers. It's impossible without both. I have obtained qualifications as an international lawyer, I answered honestly. I couldn't meet Karen's eyes. Her intense beauty was overwhelming. What? Kent shouted in disbelief. I had no choice but to continue. After being assigned to this department, I realized I had a lot of free time, so I decided to go to university. There's a well-performing international university here. Its law faculty is the only one that prepares for the international lawyer exam, so I studied there. You mean you worked full-time and attended university to get an international lawyer qualification? Karen held her head in her hands and shook it from side to side. You have such vast knowledge. Where did you get this scientific knowledge? It came naturally from studying various past cases. I can't believe such an amazing person is just a regular employee. Kenneth, would you like to return to the main office? Karen, bringing someone like him to the main office would tarnish his prestige, Kent protested. You didn't understand Kenneth's materials at all. If I had to choose between the two of you, I'd definitely choose Kenneth. Kent was taken aback by her words. Thank you for the offer, but as you can see, I've spent 9 years away from the main office environment. I might be more of a hindrance if I returned. What are you talking about? You're far more suited to a managerial position than I am. After a few rounds of back and forth, I finally gave in to her determination. I would return to the main office after 9 years. I felt like Rip Van Winkle. As I left the conference room, my colleagues and seniors, who had overheard the conversation, congratulated me. I was really fortunate to have such great companions. I almost cried. I would return to the main office on Monday. I felt my legs tremble as I headed to work. I could see the emergency stairs from that time when I was found talking to Amy. My heart ached. I wondered what had happened to Amy. All employees could access the organizational chart, so I could check. I occasionally looked to see where Amy was. She was now 32. It wouldn't be surprising if she were married, but her last name hadn't changed. Some people keep their maiden names after marriage. Given how cute she was probably married or had found someone great. What was I thinking? I stopped myself. Right, Amy, and I didn't have anything between us. Nothing at all. Kith. A voice called from behind on my way to the entrance. I realized who it was before I turned around. Slowly, I turned. In front of me stood Amy, whom I hadn't seen in 9 years. She had become much more mature, but she still had the same delicate charm. She started crying in front of me. I hurried over to her and handed her a handkerchief. I didn't want to get into trouble on my first day back by making a woman cry in such a public place. What should I do? Kenneth, it's really you. Amy smiled through her tears. I couldn't help but smile too. We agreed to meet after work. I wasn't afraid of Kent anymore. I had been called back to the main office as a manager. I could stand up to Kent's harassment with my new position. After 6:00 p.m., we met at the agreed place. Seeing her waiting in the cold reminded me of 9 years ago. I pretended to hold a can of coffee as I approached her. Here, warm up with this, I said, extending my hand as if I were holding a can of coffee. To my surprise, she took my hand. Your hand is warm, Kenneth, she said. We held hands and walked to the restaurant area. We talked about the truth behind the incident 9 years ago and what had happened in our lives since then. Amy told me she had always liked me. I think I fell for you while you were mentoring me. I caused you so much trouble because of it. I'm really sorry for everything that happened because of me, she said. Amy suddenly stopped and apologized deeply, looking down. It wasn't your fault. Please lift your head, I said gently. She cautiously looked up. Did you carry that guilt for 9 years? Maybe that's why she was still single. She hadn't dated anyone in those 9 years. Then please forget about it. Be free. Okay. I'm sorry for these 9 years. No, it's not that I haven't dated anyone in these 9 years because, Amy fidgeted. Kenneth, I love. Before she could finish, I spoke. I love you, Amy. Amy's eyes widened, and tears streamed down her face. Me too, she said. That's how Amy and I became a couple. In those 9 years, I had many experiences, but each one shaped who I am today. At first glance, some events might seem unlucky, but looking back, they might have been good turning points. Perhaps turning misfortunes into allies makes one stronger. With such thoughts, I went to sleep that night. Amy now holds a supervisory position at the main office. Moreover, Amy, about these materials. Yes, Amy and I are working in the same department again. Most of the HR people from back then are no longer in the department, so a reinvestigation of past incidents was conducted. Amy and I were interviewed, and with the help of many people, I was finally proven innocent regarding the past incident. Amy had grown into a very dependable supervisor over those 9 years. We've kept our relationship a secret at work. Even though we're not at an age where we need to hide it, it just feels right. When we're alone, we talk. I never thought I'd get to work under you again, Kenneth. Me neither, Amy. I thought I'd be stuck at that branch until retirement. But the people at the branch were nice too, right? Yeah, they were. After my case was proven to be a wrongful accusation, I strongly requested reinvestigations for the others at the branch. It turned out that most of them had been falsely accused as well due to HR's mistakes. Those sent to the branch were offered suitable positions, but most declined. They said they preferred the relaxed work at the branch. The numerous wrongful accusations prompted a quick overhaul of the system. In that process, I was promoted to department head. 2 months after becoming department head, I proposed to Amy. She tearfully accepted. Isabella. John. I called out. I heard voices from upstairs saying, yes. Amy and I got married, and our daughter Isabella was born the following year. 2 years later, our son John was born. Now the 4 of us live happily together. We bought a house with a garden, and both of us still work at the same company. We make sure to go somewhere every weekend. Kids grow up fast. They keep getting bigger and bigger. This moment only happens now. I've come to cherish the present moment. The seemingly secluded life at the rural branch now feels like a distant memory. I never thought I would get married. Apparently, my mother didn't think so either. Having lost her husband young, I bought my mother an apartment near our house. It's a 2-bedroom place. I worried that being too close might make Amy feel suffocated, but my mother and Amy get along very well now. They are like real mother and daughter. I'm really glad I was able to let my mother hold her grandchildren. Life is truly unpredictable. Karen, who gave me a turning point, is now working hard as a department head. I also want to work hard for my precious family and cherish the time spent with them on weekends.